Hi, this is the third video of the Degas equine sculpture. In this video, I am refining the edges of the negative shapes and thus refining the edges of the positive shapes. As you know, they share the same edge. In this video, as usual, I have speeded up the drawing so it doesn't take quite as long as I do. Also, I have left my descriptions to a minimum since I think this drawing pretty much speaks for itself. I hope you enjoy doing it. I certainly did, especially the last 10% because that's when everything comes together. And boy, do I love to draw and see it all take shape at the very end. Thank you. Okay, here I am refining the negative shapes, filling in the entire area, not just a dark halo around the edge. I continue to evaluate distance and direction. Seriously, I am looking only at the outside shape. I do my best not to look at the horse itself. If I find myself changing that, I stop and reset until I'm looking only at the outside. It's the only way I know how I can get something accurate instead of something that I've already memorized or expect. A straight line, a direction, the shape of the point, fill it in. Another straight line compared to the length of the first straight line. Compare, evaluate, that's all it is compare one thing to another. You can almost feel it. You can feel how far you've gone with your instrument, and so it's tactile as well as visual. Now this is interesting. If I fill in these panels above the horse, that's another measurement. And the bottom of that shape, of course, shares the edge with the neck. And there it is. Whoops, dropped my part of my charcoal. But it was really fascinating that the neck goes up, then level, and then down. And you can see that, especially from the top. Now filling in the third panel above the rump, and I'm thinking to myself that nothing in between the panels can be lighter than a number 7, assuming 10 being black and 0 being blank. So many times we fill in the darks and we don't realize that the middle values have to be filled in as well, not just left too light. It looks really light next to a dark, but if you squint your eyes, you can see that there's no real lights above this horse. Same thing now. There's no real lights on the bottom half of this sculpture. Everything below the light is darker than everything in the light. So I'll definitely be thinking of that as I go. Working the whole thing at once, working the whole drawing, not just one little place. Because if I keep it going on as a whole, it will be much more successful, and I'll be able to keep comparing one side to the other, the lightest thing to the lightest in the whole area, not just what it's next to. Really important. How light is it compared to everything? Like for instance now, the whole neck, if I squint, is a little bit darker than the top of the shoulder or the top of the rump. Definitely have to squint to see that, though. Smaller shapes. Now it's time to bring the values a little bit closer to what I see. I'm assuming this far leg is about a 7 into 8, even 9 at the bottom. The near leg, probably a 5. Right in here, it might even go 6 to 7. It's really fun to see how this develops at this point. I enjoy it so much as it takes shape. So I darkened that lighter part of the horse's hind leg, and now I have to darken above it even more. Every time you do one thing, you usually have to develop another thing next to it. It's all a series of developments. kind of filling in some of the areas and then smaller shapes in between the areas. And hopefully I'll see that the front leg is too light. Now there's a nice shape underneath the mane. A little bit of a triangle, a little bit of a rectangle. If I continued more, I would definitely make the edge between the bottom of the neck and the top of the negative shape under the neck. I would make that value slide into each other so that the edge would almost disappear. If I squint, it does, so I want to not be able to see it on my drawing either. It's a little bit too distinct, that edge between the bottom of the neck and the top of that shape. I skipped a little bit so I can see that I filled in the front of the thigh here. Now again, smaller and smaller shapes. There we go. Now I'm kind of trying to disappear that edge a little bit. You can see that there's a little bit of a light touch involved here. And any time that the blending tool goes a little bit darker because there's some smudge on it, I can always erase it so easily. That's why charcoal is such a interesting medium, is it blends easily, it goes fast. It's a little bit like painting with black and white, but any correction can be made instantly. It's really coming together. I'm really close to being finished. So just tiny little adjustments. It's still really soft. You could take it a lot further, but for this, I think you get the idea. And I hope you enjoy following along and doing your own drawing from the reference I gave you. definitely tend to leave eyes and smaller details to the last, but especially eyes are some of the most fun things to do. I don't want to do them too early. It's almost like a reward. Smaller shapes, tiny shapes. It reminds me of the quote I often use that I got from Charles Movalli. And he said, first you draw the dog, and then you draw the fleas. Large shapes, middle shapes. Only at the end are the small shapes, which we would call detail. The eraser is another drawing tool. You can blend with it. You can make a new edge. Couple little tiny edges, a little bit of sparkle and light, and then that's just about it. I hope you enjoyed this. I sure did. An exercise in negative shapes.